We've got our final panel for the afternoon, and what a panel it is. I know we are running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to keep my intro very, very short. This is our panel on women's health and longevity, well-being and longevity. And if I can invite our panelists and our moderator to head on up to the stage, Dr. Ashna Basu, Layne Beachley, and Associate Professor Cheryl Carcel, please, and also Angela Priestley, who will be our moderator for the afternoon. Yes, please give them a round of applause. You know what? Just sit anywhere.
I feel Fran likes it to be in order, so there we go. Yeah.
So I'm going to start with Dr. Cheryl Carcel. Dr. Carcel is the head of the Brain Health Program at the George Institute for Global Health and a practicing neurologist. Next to Dr. Carcel, we have Dr. Ashna Basu, who is a doctor and award-winning global advocate for gender equity in health and society. And of course, we've got Layne Beachley, who I'm sure you all know is an absolute surfing legend. She's claimed a remarkable 7 world titles, and I think the only surfer in the world to win 6 consecutively, which is just extraordinary. And of course, Angela from Women's Agenda. So please give a round of applause to our panel talking about well-being and longevity.
All right, thank you. Longevity, so well-being and longevity. So longevity, I was really excited about this topic idea, mainly because everything we hear about longevity seems to be from, and I mentioned this earlier in the intro, it is a lot from the male podcast sort of point of view. We were talking about the ice baths before. We were talking about like the saunas and the expensive things that, you know, certain people with a lot of access to a lot of money, I might say, are able to do to, apparently support their longevity. Longevity, and then I was sitting up the back there thinking, should I actually look up the definition of longevity? Because I've got an idea of what it means in my head. And it can mean different things. So people look at it as the length of life. It looks at, we can look at lifespan versus health span, how healthy you'd be in later life. And as we had that stat earlier, talking about how women might live, or women do, as we know, live longer than men, but tend to spend a greater proportion of their later life in more debilitating health than men. So all this stuff is important, and it all also comes back a lot to well-being. So Cheryl, I'm going to start with you for the first question. I wanted to ask about how, and given the work that you're doing at the moment, how we've ended up in this place where we really are, lacking a lot of data on women's health, and the research, behind longevity and some of these issues tends to be focused on men. Well, how did we get here? Why is that the case?
Thanks, Angela. And first of all, I'd like to thank Women's Agenda, and it's such a privilege to be here, to be in this panel with this group on stage. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
From a clinician and research perspective, longevity for me means reducing morbidity and mortality, but also improving quality of life. And so one of the reasons why we don't have enough data on women and health is that we are underrepresented sort of in research. And you've heard this the whole day. So if we're talking about cardiovascular disease, in many trials, women are only represented 30 to 40% in trials. And then when you do have enough women, the results are not disaggregated by safety and efficacy. And in terms of I'm going to take one example, and I think Professor Yang Lim alluded to it earlier about an Alzheimer's trial. And then when we do disaggregate data by sex, the results are in the supplementary, where they are hardly read, very difficult to download, especially if you are not a subscriber to New England Journal of Medicine. And so it's put in the back, even though the results say that this drug is not as effective in women. So it's an issue. It's an issue about representation. It's an issue about analyses. And then and this really started in the 1960s, I believe. And it was a protective ban when women were given thalidomide. Pregnant women were given thalidomide to treat for nausea during pregnancy in a clinical trial. And they found out that the offsprings of these women had horrible limb deformities. So the offsprings would have, missing limbs, or half of them cut off when they came out. So the productive ban in the beginning, but then it carried on, I think. And then the other reasons why women are underrepresented is that sometimes some people believe that the hormones women have are too complex. And women can just serve as the norm. And so this has impact in safety, where we are not reporting safety issues. Using World Health Organization data, it's been found that women are more likely to report adverse drug outcomes, adverse drug reports 1.5 to 1.7 times more than men. And so it also has sort of equity impact, wherein women will not be able to access these drugs if they're not actually tested in women. And so I think the tide is turning. I mean, it's been turning a long time. Since the 80s, the US has mandated representation of women in clinical trials. Many other countries have followed, and I'm happy to note that Australia has also given attention to sex and gender, especially in medical research. And we heard about the Honorable Jed Kearney earlier today. We also know that the NHMRC and the MRFF, which is the leading major funding agencies in medical research in Australia, have put out a statement on sex and gender in medical research, encouraging sex disaggregation of data. But I think there is a role for every one of us. First of all, if you are involved in drug regulation or in a funding agency, that we need to ensure that sex and gender are integrated into research. If you review for journals, then you need to ask these journals publishers if they have policies that require researchers to analyze their data. And then finally, if you are a patient or a person with lived experience, I think one of the ways that we can do it is to contribute to research, participate in one, or contribute to sort of research groups about your experiences.
Great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to come back with some more questions in a moment, but Ashna, to bring you in now, and going to a different part of this topic, but still related. So obviously, I mean, a lot of women's longevity, and we might talk about health span as well, living well and living happy later in life. I mean, it obviously does depend. Mental health is huge in this, and this is your space. What can you share in terms of the latest research regarding what is impacting women's mental health that is often maybe missed in some of the rhetoric?
Yeah, I mean, what's not impacting women's mental health? I think, so the first thing to recognise is that women are a heterogeneous group, and so there are things that will impact some women that won't impact others, whether you're trans, First Nations, you experience socioeconomic disadvantage. So I want to be very careful that I'm not painting with too broad a brush. And then the other thing is that some of what really impacts women is actually not the latest research, right? Because the latest research tends to be quite biological, but what we know is that when there is conflict or war, women disproportionately bear the brunt of that. Where there is climate change, women bear the brunt of that. Men's violence, women bear the brunt of that. So these are all things where, like, no matter what biological silver bullet I have, you exist in that context. So when I'm seeing a patient, I'm thinking about what we call those biopsychosocial factors to kind of craft the lens through which I'm seeing this unique woman in front of me. But some of the research that I think is really interesting, because, you know, Cheryl, when you speak about hormones, women are simultaneously considered to have like impossibly complex hormones, but also like our hormones are allegedly so simple that they just relate to reproduction, and you know, like nothing goes up this way. And what I think is really interesting and difficult, because I think we've also been labelled hormonal plenty of times in our lives, but the impact of hormones, that's something that hasn't been considered in research. The fact that estrogen is neuroprotective, and stopping to think these patterns that we might see in some women where mental health issues change around puberty, around menopause and perimenopause, around pregnancy. I don't know the research actually in people that are receiving gender-affirming care either, but I'd be interested in that, and in IVF. And people like Professor Jayashree Kulkarni and Dr. Louise Newsom are doing a lot of work in this space to say, are there women who have been given blunter tools like SSRIs when what they actually need is hormone replacement therapy? And why is it that when we think of menopause, we think of hot flushes when that's maybe like the 8th most common symptom people report, and actually they're more likely to report brain fog, anhedonia, so like not finding joy in things, being really tired all of the time, feeling really low or irritable in mood, things that might lead someone to being put on medication for their mental health when what they actually need is hormone therapy. And I don't think that's going to fix everyone. I don't want to just like slap a patch on every woman. But it's another thing to consider when we're formulating the people in front of us.
Great, thank you. I'm one of those people who got given the antidepressants, and then about 6 months later I kind of went in and said, I'm going through menopause, and mainly because that's what everything on social media was telling me was happening to me, and I actually wasn't. I had a thyroid issue, so, and it's one of those things and that's a pretty simple thing to diagnose with a blood test, and you can take the thyroid replacement hormone as well. So it was, I think I'm saying that in a sense of don't believe everything that we see on social media, but also that these big shifts can occur around that, and also something like that may be spurred by pregnancy or something else along the way too. So. Layne, to bring you in, this is so into a very different part of this topic now.
I don't have a doctorate or a PhD, except in overachievement.
Surely they'll give you a PhD. Hey, they gave Ian Thorpe a PhD at one of those universities. So,
I've never went to uni.
An
either.
honourary doctorate. So.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right. We'll have some words.
A posthumous one, perhaps.
A statue?
A statue, yes. That's a good use of money too.
Yes. Yeah. So Layne...
thank you for the encouragement. Someone wants to see a statue of me.
I can't help but notice the statue of the male surfers in freshwater.
Oh yeah, the Duke's there.
It's called Surfers Lane, and there's all these statues of males, and there's no...
Well, there's a plaque of all the surfers from Australia, but yeah, I don't exist up there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, anyway.
Okay.
I'm not here to bitch and moan.
Anyway, sorry.
We're here to inspire.
All right, let's talk about wellbeing,
Okay.
wellbeing management.
Yes.
And we might start with some physical health. So to look at the physical health side of it. So what can you share about maintaining physical health through different life stages? How does that support you? How have you done it? How do you do it?
That's an interesting question. I just want to tie back into what Grace said earlier around the advocacy starts with the self, and that means embracing where you're at, embracing the body you're in, and embracing the time of physicality that you can do. Obviously as a teenager, I was moving and outside all day. Then into my 20s and 30s, I was a professional athlete and pushed my body incredibly hard. Now I'm in my 50s. I'm in constant pain management. And that means just honouring the fact that my body can't do what I expected it to do in my 30s, and I've got to accept the fact that I'm 52 and my body moves differently, feels differently, has changed a lot through menopause. And when it comes to advocating for the self, like today I looked at the agenda and there were so many amazing speakers and presenters that I wanted to hear from. But I've been away from the ocean for 3 days, and I'm like a fish out of water when I've been away from the ocean. So I actually chose to go home and advocate for myself and have a surf before I came in here. Because if my job is to show up and inspire and empower others, I can't do that authentically until I've done that for myself. So I've got a toolkit of activities that I know bring me back to life, that not only give me my health span but my lifespan. And that's what I tend to focus on, is embracing activities and changing my toolkit. I'm very agile in my response to wellbeing when it comes to the physical state. So if I'm feeling tired and I don't want to push myself, I know how much surfing takes out of me, then I'll choose to go and do yoga or some meditation or go for a gentle walk in nature. Those little things mean a whole lot. But as we get older, we become more tactile with our response to exercise. So it's about building the self-awareness about how our body feels and asking ourselves, like I did on my way home today, what do I really want? Not only do I really want, but what do I really need right now? And we are our world's best teachers and our world's best doctors if we start tuning into how we feel and honouring that consistently.
Would you have done something like yoga when you were competing as well, or is that...
There was a world champion called Tom Carroll who was really into yoga and is into meditation and teaches it now, and he introduced it to me in my early 20s, and I thought it was a crock of shit, quite honestly. I thought, what is this bullshit? What is this hippie stuff that people are doing? And I never understood the importance of rest and recalibration, and how taking a nap and having rest and having a day off can be an absolute game changer in our ability to perform consistently over a long period of time. So I didn't do it enough when I was younger, but now I do it every day. And I don't always have the time to do an hour-long yoga class, but I have an app on my phone called Down Dog, and if I'm stuck in a hotel room or I've got nothing to do for 15 minutes, then I just put on a Down Dog class and do that, or else I just put myself through 5 or 10 minutes of yoga, whatever my body needs at the time.
One more
honouring it.
One more question on honouring your body, but
Yes.
it's I guess it comes back to rest. And if you were competing today, if you would think differently about rest, knowing what we know a few more things now, but also you've talked about how you incorporate rest. It sounds like you do it intuitively. You don't intentionally have set days or anything of rest.
I'm very fortunate that I don't have a corporate job, so I don't. My day's not set by a regular routine, so I don't need an alarm to remind me to go and take a break from my computer or walk outside. I have an office at home, and I get to choose, and so that's this morning. That's what I gave myself the freedom to do. It's like, Layne, you get to choose today. What do you choose to do? How do you choose to honour yourself? How do you choose to show yourself that self-love and that self-care? Do you have the energy, and do you have the passion and the desire to do that, such as going for a surf, for example? I've always got the passion and desire to go for a surf, but I don't always have the energy. So when I was younger, I didn't have that self-awareness. I never asked myself those questions. I just demanded of myself. I expected of myself. I'm a professional athlete, for fuck's sake, like get up and go, just keep going. And that resulted in chronic fatigue syndrome. I was sick with the flu, and it was the middle of winter. It was 6 degrees outside. It was pouring with rain. I was coughing up green lungs every 5 minutes, but I demanded myself to get there and go. And so my question to you, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to your health and well-being, it's one thing to pursue something, but we've got to start considering what the cost of that is. So what are you ignoring in the pursuit of success, and is it worth it? Because as we heard earlier in that panel, it's like everyone sees the shiny thing and thinks it was easy. No one sees the shit you go through. And what's the shit you're pushing through? What's the shit that you're ignoring that's costing you your quality of life, that's costing you your health and well-being, that's costing you your vitality and your sense of purpose and your sense of identity and sense of self-worth? Because it's not worth the cost. I can guarantee you that. But if you've convinced yourself it is because you're masking or because you believe success has to be hard, you'll constantly find ways to push through it, and then you wonder why you're falling apart on the side of the road with the bonnet steaming through and all your tyres are worn out. When our petrol cap or the light comes on in our car, if you've got an electric car, the battery goes down, you tend to pull over and plug it in or fill it up. But the same thing happens to our bodies, and we think we can get another 100 to 200 Ks out of it. And it's, at what cost? Yeah. So that's it.
I'm visualising this very sad tyre right now of when I've pushed too far myself. So,
so then it's having the toolkit of okay, I've recognised I pushed too far. What am I going to do? And does that mean it doesn't mean you actually have to go for a walk or go and do some meditation? It can actually mean okay, I've pushed myself really hard today. I'm going to make sure I nourish myself with good food, hydrate myself with good, with water instead of alcohol, and go to bed earlier. Simple things.
Yeah. All right, so Cheryl.
I don't want to take all the fun out of life. God, my biggest weakness are hot chips.
I love hot chips as well.
Yeah, me too.
Pringles and hot chips. So
Can't stand Pringles. But
so good. So not good for you. But so Cheryl, your research centres around stroke, and this is a really important thing to talk about. So if we're going to talk lifespan, healthspan, we need to talk about stroke as well. Often an under talked about subject. More women than men die of stroke. Stroke kills more women in Australia than breast cancer. I didn't know that until I read that earlier. More women than men are dying of stroke every year, according to the Stroke Foundation. And stroke, along with brain health generally, is, like I say, obviously a huge discussion point on longevity. So what do you want more women to know about stroke?
Thanks, Angela. First, if the audience will allow, maybe I can describe stroke a bit, what it is. Stroke is when you have sort of a sudden blockage of a blood vessel in your brain, and it can be blocked either by a plug or it can be a it can be a burst blood vessel. And so you lose blood supply and oxygen to a certain part of the brain, which means that part of the brain, if you don't get to hospital early enough, can die. And so depending on which part of the brain loses oxygen, that is how you will manifest your stroke. So for example, in many common areas, you have weakness in the arm and the leg, or facial asymmetry, where one side of your face is more droopy than the other, or you have difficulty speaking. And so if you kind of leave that in the back of your mind, that description, I'll get back to it later. But the second thing I want to say is that the most common sort of risk factors for stroke in women and men are many things that you would consider older people to have. So hypertension, diabetes, elevated cholesterol, but there are also sort of unique risk factors for women. And this is if you use hormonal contraceptives, you're more likely to have a stroke. If you have migraine with aura, which many women have, you're more likely to have a stroke. And also being pregnant, and when you are in that sort of peripartum period, which is sort of like a day before you give birth and 2 days after. In that part of your life, you're more likely to have a stroke. And so that means while stroke is known as a disease of older people or the elderly, it can happen in young people. And this is important because in women, there is a sort of a bimodal distribution of stroke, where younger women have strokes, and when you're older, you have strokes, when you're above 70. And this is important to know because in a study that we did that linked ambulance data with public and private hospitals in New South Wales, younger women were less likely to be recognized by paramedics as having a stroke. And so that means they weren't immediately brought to hospital. They weren't given the life-changing medication that you can get, which might, either spell out you being wheeled out in a wheelchair or you walking on your own. So you miss that opportunity for early treatment. And why is this happening? We think it's because stroke is thought of as an old person's disease. So if you're a young woman coming in, you can't possibly have a stroke. You might just be having, a migraine or anxiety or just nausea. And we also think that some of the symptoms that women have when they have a stroke in different parts of their brain are under-recognized. So women are more likely to just complain of fatigue or, numbness on both of their legs when they're having a stroke. So it's a bit different for women and men. The most common symptoms are common in both, but it's a bit different. So what I would like women to know about stroke is that it can also happen in young women, and it's not just about weakness or speech problems or facial problems. It can be other things as well.
Great. Okay, excellent. So, and that's important information that we're all taking forward now as well. So, Ashna, and I'm going to move on to a different topic. This is how it's going with this panel. We're covering a lot of different things, but I do want to talk about loneliness. And Cheryl, I was going to talk with you about this as well, but I might take it to Ashna for a moment. So, and that is loneliness. I mean, from what I've seen on research, is a huge aspect of health. In some cases, we look at where women are perhaps, and I'm not suggesting any data around this, but possibly even less lonely than men in some cases, particularly older women, because they may have had that experience of having connections and friendships and the experience socially that you might have pushing a pram around and getting to know people in your local neighbourhood. That could be an experience. What do you see in your work around loneliness and how it's impacting mental health, if it's changing today, what factors are there? You sort of touched on the different loads that women carry as well, which I imagine might contribute to loneliness or put people at risk of loneliness later on too.
Yeah, so I think there's the loneliness that's perhaps more comorbid with like isolation, right, where you don't have people around you. And I actually think this is a huge issue for when you kind of look at women that are at risk of homelessness, that leave a marriage where they were stay at home parent and they're left in a financially worse situation where they don't have super. These are women that are very vulnerable to being isolated. And, we think of loneliness and isolation as like this sad little old man. But also, men are more likely to die first, leaving kind of the female partner behind in a heterosexual relationship. Also, when a woman gets sick, the male partner is more likely to leave. Like, there are all these things that leave. I mean, the other fortunate thing is that often women do have a community around them that can rally, so that's protective. But there's that kind of loneliness and isolation. But there's the loneliness when you're surrounded by people, when you're in a busy family and you're kind of just mum. And you're not a person with their own wants and needs, and you're being told that, well, you kind of work part-time when you work 4 days a week, and so why can't you do more of the chores around the house? And not feeling seen, not feeling valued, that's an incredibly lonely experience. And I see that a lot, where even the kind of most overtly well-intentioned partners can't quite bring themselves to see and value the woman in the relationship. And I think that's maybe something that gets missed a little bit, is that there's the loneliness where you don't have people around, but there's the loneliness where you're not seen and you're not valued and heard.
And the data definitely backs that up. We're seeing how the younger people are the leading cohort of loneliness, but also there's this cohort of women who are not living alone, who are living with people, a family, but they are reporting loneliness. And I think that you put it so perfectly there, not necessarily being seen with everything that they are doing and not being able to have the time to do something outside of that may support their connection and social interaction. Layne, I guess you might touch on the loneliness aspect as well, but I mean, I wanted to bring it into like hobbies and sport, because I think that is actually a great opportunity for connection, and surfing is a clear example of that. And so what do you see as the role of these sorts of, we won't stick it to surfing, that's probably going to be your experience, but other hobbies or other things that enable you to interact with other people, but also enable you to support your well-being as well?
Yeah, so one of the things that causes burnout is feeling deprived of joy and excitement in your life. And if we're putting work ahead of everything, then we're going to be depriving ourselves of joy. One of the easiest ways to eliminate burnout and establish a greater level of connection, not only with ourselves, with others, because every relationship that we have is an extension of the relationship that we have with ourselves. So we need to start prioritising the relationship we have with ourselves. And one of the best ways to boost that is literally establishing a love to-do list, or how do I love to spend my time kind of list. And this is, we teach this in one of the courses that I teach, but it's about helping people identify what do they love to do, because you may have forgotten what you love to do. Those things may have just faded away and you're too busy to do anything that you enjoy. And if that's the case, then you're depriving yourself of that joy, and then you're leading yourself to a greater incidence of burnout. So hobbies, if you can't remember what you love to do now, think about what you loved to do as a kid. And it was interesting listening to Khadija talking about colouring in. I love colouring in. I loved doing it as a kid. We just went down to Kangaroo Valley and spent 3 days there. And the first thing I do when I get there with my friends that live there is I pull out their colouring in kit. I pull out the book and the pencil, so they're always there. So when I'm having an idle moment, I just go back to colouring in. I don't turn on the TV. I don't distract myself with social media. I don't put on music. I literally immerse myself in an activity. And what science has shown that when you immerse yourself actually in something that is also physically engaging, it has a greater incidence of detaching you from whatever is mentally draining you. It actually rejuvenates you. So dancing, cooking, cleaning. Cleaning, obviously not one of my favourite things.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, but cleaning is a good way to do it. I love to see results, so cleaning can sometimes be enjoyable. Gardening, colouring in, playing chess, obviously surfing, walking, catching up with friends. Those things are edifying. Those things rejuvenate me. I love watching sunrises, sunsets. You start putting together this list, and you can start prioritising these little micro moments throughout your day that rejuvenate you and bring you back to your sense of self, your inner being, your core. So I have a lot of hobbies.
Love the hobbies that get women out of the house.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's not cleaning then, is it?
Yeah. When
it could be cleaning outside the school.
Men that will play golf and they're out for like 5 hours
and
a
it's
day,
work and they're getting paid for it somehow.
And they're out playing soccer. They get to do something that removes them from that identity in the house that is just for them and is kind of separate. So gardening, you're still kind of liable to get roped into a task around the house. So the things like even something as simple, like for me, like I started doing singing lessons again that I hadn't done since school. And that was something that was like an hour a week that I was prioritizing, that like I literally could not do anything else during that time, which got me out of the house doing something completely different.
Did you meet friends? Did you make connections? Was it a lesson with a...
It's a lesson, just one-on-one. Personally, I don't do hobbies to make friends. I'm one of those people that's like, I kind of like, I've got my social circle. I'm like pretty happy. I don't think I have necessarily the mental space. So those hobbies are actually kind of for me rather than seeking connection.
Yeah.
It's like me in the water too. Don't come up and talk to me in the surf because I really just want to be on my own. It's my happy place. It's solitude. I mean, you'd be seeing patients all day. You've been talking to people all day. So it's nice to get it. But putting on that headphones and standing in front of a microphone is going to be one of the most vulnerable moments you can find yourself in.
It's a good practice in kind of embracing imperfection, I think, like especially coming back to it, after so many years, you're quite rusty and just being like, oh, like actually if I'm a bit out of tune, like it doesn't really matter, and getting out there and being amongst people and, when we have our little concerts, everyone has a wide range of skill and they're just having a really good time. And I'm probably someone that kind of also identifies as a bit of like an overachiever or very like hyper efficient all the time. So doing something just because it's fun and freeing myself to like not try and be the best at it has had, I think, ripple effects in other parts of my life.
Yeah. I want to see more. I like the advocacy around like hobbies and creativity. And I think often we can get trapped in this idea that anything that we do, I know if I do anything that's other than kids or work, I start to feel guilty. Even at 5 o'clock in the morning, I somehow start to feel guilty that I'm at the gym and not somehow making better use of the time. But like we need to get past that.
Have you got through that yet?
I'm working on it.
Okay,
I'm working on it. So yeah, and that's the thing. And I'm sure the people relate. We think, when the kids get older, or when the kids, or this happens, or this happens. But by that point, it might be too late that we may have.
Yeah, now you're sacrificing your health span and your lifespan by putting all those things into the future. I mean, your kids want to see you happy, and for you to do that, you have to give yourself permission to be happy. So that means prioritizing things that you enjoy, because now you're role modeling the behaviour that you want your kids to emulate.
Yes, absolutely. So thank you. I'm using this as a little session for myself here. So thank you. Some coaching off Layne. So what we'll do is, because we are running short on time, and we're going to end on a key. This is our final session for the day.
Self-care plan is what I'm going to give you all. You're all going to walk out here with self-care.
Layne, I'll go to you last, Layne. We've got your slide there. So we've had this massive program, and I appreciate everyone who is here. It's been a long day, and it's been a difficult day. It's been a roller coaster day as well. So a couple of minutes before we finish up, what's one thing you want the audience to take away when it comes to healthy longevity?
I really like that. I think I might do two things if you allow, but very quick. So I really like the idea of using physical activity to improve your mental health. I practice martial arts, and every time we go inside the martial arts studio, it's Australian Martial Arts Academy, the teachers always tell us, leave your problems at the door. When you bow, you leave your problems at the door, and then when you come in, you concentrate only in what we're doing today. So I kind of like that, and then it helps, you process your day, finish your day well, you do a really good session, and you feel really good even though you had a lot of problems during the day. And then
What colour belt are you?
Which martial art?
Red 2.
Red 2.
Yes.
Which martial arts are you doing?
Taekwondo.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't mess with Cheryl.
But the thing that I really want to leave, the message that I want to leave women here is that if you can ensure that your voice is counted, that you're counted, then I think that would be good. So if you have an opportunity to join a clinical trial, if you can be a person with lived experience to contribute to research projects, I think we can really progress that area.
All right, thank you.
At risk of invoking the ire of big wellness, I think that a lot of the things that can be really helpful are things that are kind of relatively easily accessible, although accepting if you're a single mum or you work multiple jobs, that's easier said than done. But there are a lot of things outside of our control. We can't control society and climate change and the unfair things that happen to women. So sometimes it's very helpful to take that agency and think, what is in my control? I'm like obsessive about getting 8 hours of sleep. It's really important to me. And I think like things that are free, like sleep, going for a walk or just moving your body in some way, nutrition, they're some of the hardest things to prioritize, but they actually, like, so at the moment I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I've had 4 hours sleep. I've only had coffee today. Because I've only had 4 hours sleep, I missed the gym and I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it so much because I've had this experience of having prioritized those things and I noticed the difference. So I think trying to, in the midst of a crazy world, just trying to do those things that are in your control and start with that.
Yeah, you're not always going to get it right. So cut yourself some slack.
Yes. There will be those days, and sometimes there's days when you just can't sleep. That's what I find. I'm prioritising the sleep, and here I am, I can't sleep, and it's the most frustrating thing. So just recognise that you can try to fix that the next time and make up for it. So
Went a bit early tonight.
Yeah. So we can go to, we've got this slide.
I don't have one thing I'm going to leave with you all. I'm going to have 5 things that I'm going to leave with you all. And that is my 5-step self-care plan. This is what I do every single day. And it starts with when I wake up in the morning, instead of allowing my brain to be hijacked by my to-do list or by the future or by the past, I go straight into a box breathing exercise. And the box breathing exercise literally calms my mind, it calms my central nervous system, it activates my parasympathetic nervous system, because our thoughts activate the stress response, it's our breath that activates the parasympathetic. It's one of the things that calms us down. And it's the current that connects the mind and the body. So does everyone want to do one? Well, let's just do 3 rounds together. We'll do 2 rounds together, we'll make it really quick. That's only 30 seconds. Everyone sit up straight in their chairs, put their feet flat on the floor. Uncross your arms. And then just become conscious of how you're breathing. Breathe in through your nose and out through your nose if that's available to you. Otherwise, breathe in and out through your mouth, or breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, whatever's most comfortable. I feel that science is showing that in and out through the nose has the most impact. So everyone take a deep breath in through the nose and hold it for a moment and then breathe out. Now we're going to do this to my count. I'm going to ask you to breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4 and hold for 4, and we'll do that twice together. And here we go. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2, 3, 4. If you have your eyes closed, keep them closed. This may be the first time that you've communicated with your body today. One of the most important things I think we all need to recognise is the body whispers before it screams. Is the body whispering to you right now, or is it screaming? What is it asking for? What does it need? And are you willing to honour that? Just tune in, just listen. Feedback is a gift. And open your eyes. It's a simple exercise that you can bring into your day. I was driving through peak hour traffic to Homebush the other day for a board meeting, and I was literally punching the windscreen. I was so fucking frustrated with traffic. I was like, how do people do this every day? And I literally just stopped and I just went... And then I was able to respond to life as opposed to getting swept up in the vortex of negativity and fear. So it's one of the quickest ways to activate the relaxation response. Next thing you're going to do is find 3 words that best describes how you want to show up each day. How do you want to show up? How do you want to feel? What does the best version of you look like? I have a mantra that I wake up to every day that says, I am happy, I am healthy, and I'm abundant. It doesn't mean I wake up feeling like that every day, but it's my accountability partner to show up as that when I choose to. So if I become distracted or feeling deflated, or I've woken up having a bad night's sleep, I go, yes, I'm tired, but I choose to be happy, healthy, and abundant. And by saying those things, I'm now stepping into that and committing myself to getting closer to that. So in winter, the last thing that makes me happy is getting out of bed. But I choose to be happy by getting out of bed and putting on a baby pink fluffy onesie, which is like putting on a blanket after getting out of bed, and that makes me very happy. Then to feel healthier, I go downstairs. Fortunately, I live upstairs and downstairs. I go down to the kitchen and I pour a big glass of water and put some magnesium powder in it, and that makes me feel healthy. And then to be abundant, I can literally just look at my life. I can walk into my trophy room, but that's just obscene. But I know that I am abundant. So having a mantra helps you show up as your best self, and you can utilize the words that help bring the best out in you and that challenge you to be better than what you are. I also use this when I'm scared. If I'm surfing in really big waves, I used to be a big wave surfer. I don't do it as much now, but I ask myself, Layne, what do you need to believe to get the job done today? I need to believe I am confident, I am powerful, I am strong, I am equipped. Find words that bring the best out in you and commit to reciting them several times a day, because it's our decisions in life, not the conditions of our life, that determines the quality of our lives. So start making better decisions. And a better decision is to get up and make your bed, kickstart your day with a sense of achievement. Who here makes their bed already? Oh, no wonder you're all here. Look how successful you are.
There's some liars.
Everyone
out
raised their
there.
hand. That's amazing.
Every day. Yeah.
Now, speaking of stroke, Cheryl, this is an activity that they give stroke victims, which is brushing their teeth with their non-dominant hand to rewire neural pathways in the brain, correct? So neurons that fire together, wire together. We have about 86 billion of them, and they die off when we stop using them. One of the quickest ways to make yourself feel smarter and wake yourself up is to brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Doing things with your non-dominant hand. Start with a soft toothbrush, by the way. Would you give that to a stroke victim as an exercise?
Indeed.
Indeed.
Let them use the non-dominant hand, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. And then the last thing you're going to do is hydrate your body, hydrate your brain with a big glass of water. We lose almost a litre of water a night just through our breathing. I believe that's correct, Doctor? No? Yeah? Okay, good. I don't want to say things that are wrong when I'm sitting next to two doctors. We lose a litre of water a night. Trust your thirst. It's there for a reason. If you wake up hungry, it's actually an indication that you may be dehydrated. And one of the quickest ways to alleviate brain fog, to flush toxins, to lose weight, to suppress your appetite is to bring more water into your life. So if you want to know how much water you need to drink, you can open up your mobile phones if you feel like it and open up your calculator and multiply your body weight by 35 and divide that final number by 1,000. And that will represent the amount of litres of water you need to drink each day, on average. The bigger you are, the bigger the number. I have to drink 1.96, 2 litres of water a day. I have a water bottle that has 700 mils in it. If I drink 3 of those a day, I've hit my quota. So this is my 5-step self-care plan. Feel free to make it your own. I hold myself accountable by doing this every single day, and it makes me feel happier, healthier, and more purposeful. So that's my gift to you, everybody. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you for all the gifts that we've had from this panel. This has been excellent. I think we all can take away quite a few things from that to implement. I know I am, so thank you.